Welcome back to the Rundown. Well, these are trying times, and I'd say certainly a good time for inspiring personal stories. Now, the establishment of the State of Israel would likely not have occurred without the help of the foreign military volunteers known as Machalniks, who came from around the world to fight in the War of Independence. One of them is South African-born Harold Smoky Simon, who helped establish what the world knows today as one of the most powerful air forces in the world. Simon recently turned 100 years old, and our defense correspondent Daniel Semak sat down with him to hear his story of Israel's first challenges and his outlook on what is yet to come.
The story goes back to January 1941. I just finished my studies at university in South Africa. The moment that I put down my pen after my final examination, I volunteered to join the South African Air Force. I was trained as a navigator bombardier, and I served in World War II for 5 years. Then we saw the war clouds gathering over Palestine. I was about to get married at that time. Myra also decided to volunteer to go to Palestine. She had served in the South African Air Force, having been trained as a meteorologist. So we got married and we came over to Palestine. We arrived on the 9th of May, 48. We signed on with the Air Force on the 10th of May. On the 14th of May, I had the unique privilege of being on the first flight. When we took off on this flight, the base was Sde Dov, Tel Aviv, Palestine. And when we landed after a few hours, we landed at Sde Dov, Tel Aviv, Israel, because it was exactly at that time that Ben-Gurion declared the State of Israel. One thought has haunted me for years, and that is, how did Ben-Gurion have that level of inspiration and courage and determination to declare the State of Israel when he knew that 6 Arab armies were ready to obliterate the new state. He must have been infused with a spirit that is, in my opinion, unimaginable.
Smoky was soon to get his first mission, reconnaissance on the Jordanian forces.
It was a very somber situation. We saw their tanks and their armored cars and their artillery and their troops. There was a tremendous imbalance in forces between the Jews and the Arabs. For example, the Egyptian Air Force was equipped with 62 frontline combat aircraft, Spitfires and Italian Macchis, and Israel did not have a single combat aircraft or a single anti-aircraft gun.
During the formation of the state, Smoky took on a new role where he helped lay the building blocks for the Israeli Air Force.
I had the great privilege of having been appointed as Chief of Air Operations in the IAF, a position that I really respected and treasured very deeply.
Now, Israel needed to acquire combat planes, but was prohibited from purchasing them. They needed a willing partner.
Israel has an everlasting debt to one country, and that was Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia was the only country which came to Israel's aid in the War of Independence. Then the question was how to get aircraft to Israel. They were in Czechoslovakia. We set up what was known as ATC, Air Transport Command, and they flew from Czechoslovakia to Telnov.
With 4 combat planes that had never been tested, Israel struck Egyptian forces before an anticipated strike on Tel Aviv.
This was perhaps the most important flight of the IAF of all time, because the IAF on that day ensured Israel's survival. And to paraphrase Churchill, one could say that never has so much been owed by so many to so few. The 29th of May 1948, I term it Israel's Day of Survival. So, l'chaim at this moment.
Smoky did not pursue a career in the military or government, but his lifetime achievements and contributions have left a lasting impact for the State of Israel, receiving citations from former IDF generals and Israeli leaders for his contribution to the Machal movement. Today, at the ripe age of 100, his stories prove to be an invaluable lesson for Israel's youth and leaders, whether it be President Reuven Rivlin, who invited Smoky and his family to his residence, or Amikam Norkin, the head of the Israeli Air Force, who requested Smoky join a Zoom with the top Air Force commanders. It's his story that has at once shaped the establishment of the State of Israel and provided a foundation for Israel's future.
We know that the story is far from over. In fact, within 1 month, we might face a situation where we're annexing part of the West Bank. We have so many unknowns ahead of us. That's why it is so important that the leadership in Israel should be strong and should really give a direction, and the nation should be really united, because these are national problems, and the differences in political outlooks and so forth are perfectly legitimate. But there comes a time when you've got to put everything aside for the sake of unity and determination and think of the future.